Hello, boys and girls. Greg from the Scary Spirits Podcast here to make you another cocktail. This week's cocktail is the Sherlock Holmes Cocktail. And as always, it is the featured cocktail in today's episode. We're going to start with our shaker. No ice yet. To that, we're going to add 1 ounce honey syrup. Next, 1 1/2 ounce Scotch whiskey, a single malt whiskey. I'm using Glenfiddich 12, 1 1/2 ounces. Next, 1 ounce chilled Lapsang Souchong tea. Or use any black tea, but I feel like this is a pretty important ingredient because it's a very smoky tea. So, 1 ounce. Next, 1/4 ounce fresh lemon juice from the plastic lemon. 1/4 ounce. Then we add ice. And shake until frosty cold. Next, we take our pre-chilled cocktail glass and we strain. Then we drink and solve unsolvable crimes. It's pretty good. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy the podcast. See ya.
In this week's episode of Greg Makes Us Watch Hammer Horror Films, the Scary Spirits Podcast, we tackle the 1959 film The Hound of the Baskervilles. Sure, it has Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, but is it really a horror film? A mystery, for sure, where Sherlock Holmes knows all the answers. But horror? It's a pretty good movie. But if you promise me a horror hound, I want to see a horror hound, not a Great Dane in a bad mask. That's almost literally Scooby-Doo. Cheers!
Welcome to the Scary Spirits Podcast. Please be advised that the presenters may use adult language and/or discuss adult situations. This podcast is not intended for younger listeners or those that may be easily offended. So, if you're ready, let's go.
Hello, boys and girls. I'm Greg.
Hi, everyone. I'm Karen.
And welcome to the Scary Spirits Podcast. the podcast that combines the two very different but highly compatible worlds of scary films and alcoholic spirits.
What could possibly go wrong?
Indeed. How are you, Karen?
I'm doing great. How are you, Greg?
I'm good. Thank you for asking, Karen.
That's what we do.
Really, I'm just okay, but
Oh, you're just lying to make people feel better. That's so nice.
yeah, I'm a giver.
Yeah, that is what we say.
All right, Karen, was this film my choice?
This was your choice. Do you want to tell everybody what you picked?
Film I have chosen, Karen, is. Oh, but first, happy fourth anniversary, Karen.
Really?
Yes,
Oh, I forgot. That's terrible.
it's
What'd you get me?
it's Walpurgisnacht.
Oh,
That's how we know. That's how I know anyway.
I know it's not marked on my
So I
calendar,
had the
but
choice between fruit and flowers or appliances for fourth anniversary. So I got you some fruity, flowery tea, didn't I? Kinda.
oh, Lord. Well, considering I got you nothing, I guess I can't complain.
That's right.
I still will, but not on the air.
Okay.
Well, that's awesome. Doesn't seem like it's been that long. Oh, but he thinks it does.
It seems like yesterday, Karen.
Those Valpurgis knocks just keep coming
I
so
know.
quickly.
I remember when our first episode came out, I was in Siesta Key vacationing.
Nice.
And I was looking at the numbers, seeing if anyone actually listened. And a few people did. So I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I remember being happy when we hit double digits. I couldn't believe double digits worth of people would listen to us. And look at us now.
Look at us go.
Yeah,
We're worldwide now, Karen.
we're influencers as far as I'm concerned.
All right, so the film I have chosen,
For this wonderful celebration is
I don't like your tone, Karen. The Hound of the Baskervilles, a Hammer production, considered Hammer horror, but I'm sure we'll get into it. But
is
it's
that
got
why you chose it? Is it just a Hammer film or is there some
it,
connection?
I did. My main reason for choosing it was, of course, it's a Hammer. It's on the Hammer horror list, so I got to do it. But it did actually come out on May the 4th, Star Wars Day. So I must have
Okay.
had some plan.
I think you're just ticking off the Hammer films.
I'm trying to.
Do you know how many this is?
No, Karen, I do
All
not.
right.
It's quite a bit, though.
We're getting there.
We're getting through them. I believe this is film number 28.
Impressive. You just have that number ready to go.
I have a spreadsheet, Karen.
Of course you do. But there's a lot. How many Hammer horror films do you have on the list?
There's 61.
So we're not quite halfway.
Almost halfway.
We're getting there.
Yeah, getting there.
Do you have a cocktail to go with your film, Greg?
I do, Karen. It's called the Sherlock Holmes Cocktail.
Nice.
See what I did there?
Tell everyone how to make that.
We're going to need 1.5 ounces Scotch whiskey. You really need a single malt Islay Scotch here, preferably something quite peaty, like Lafshroga or whatever.
I have
don't even
no
know.
idea how to say that.
I don't either. 1 ounce chilled brewed Lapsang Souchong tea, if you've got it. And we did, Karen.
Yes, Greg mailed me some.
Otherwise, just use an ordinary tea, but not
We
green
are
tea.
not going to use an ordinary tea on this
No.
podcast.
And I think the tea is very important in this drink. Actually,
It's a strong flavor.
it is. 1 ounce honey syrup, which is just equal parts water and honey, or warm water and honey. And 1/4 ounce. Oh, shit. Does it say 3/4? Look at me with my new
It
glasses.
does say three
It's
quarter, but I
3/4.
put in 1/4 ounce. I just squirted some in, so
Yeah, it's 3/4 ounce fresh lemon juice. I think 3/4 ounce would have been too much because I
yeah,
put
I
about a
like.
1/2 ounce. I tried to get a 1/4, but of course I did. I went a little over, Karen, because you're squeezing from the plastic lemon.
Well, I squeezed an actual lemon into it, so I have no idea, but I'm guessing about a half.
Then we add all those ingredients to our trusty shaker. We add ice and shake until frosty cold. Strain into our pre-chilled cocktail glass. Drink, and then solve unsolvable crime, Karen.
Nice. Not solvable crime. That's too easy.
Yes. She would give our friends and listeners time to make their own Sherlock Holmes cocktail.
I do believe we should.
Yes, we shall. Hold on. And we're back.
Yes, we are.
Karen, might you have a brief synopsis of this film for us that we can somehow understand what is going on?
I do.
Go on, tell us all the story.
Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson meet a certain Dr. Mortimer, who tells them of the legend of the Hound born out of a murder committed by Sir Hugo Baskerville centuries ago. Explaining that Sir Charles Baskerville recently died in the same location as Sir Hugo, Mortimer expresses his deep concern that Sir Henry, the heir to the Baskerville estate, will also fall prey to the evil Hound's curse. Holmes sets out to investigate.
Thank you, Karen. We are a match. That's a pretty good synopsis.
Yep.
That's like the Cliff Notes version of the novel. All right, Karen, tell us everything you really enjoyed about this Hammer film from 1959, starring Peter Cushing and Sir Christopher Lee.
I like a good mystery. I will say I did not have it figured out by the time it got to the end. They led me down a couple pathways and I didn't know for sure who was responsible until the very end. And that's kind of fun. It's no fun if you figure it out 10 minutes in or something. So they definitely had me guessing. I've never read the book. I've actually never read any Sherlock Holmes books. But my mom used to watch, she liked to listen to the books and watch Sherlock Holmes stuff on TV. But I didn't know the story, so I was surprised at the end. I mean, not really. You narrow it down, but
Yeah, it's one of a
I
couple people.
didn't have it pegged as the right person necessarily. I had no idea with our options. I really like when Christopher Lee gets to speak and act. I liked him a lot in this. I think it's just a nice, refreshing take for him not to just see him stand and stare. Although there are a couple shots where he kind of looks like Dracula, just because I'm so used to seeing him that way. He'll just come out of a dark corner or something. There's some good shadow work. The sets are nice. Costumes are good, as usual. There isn't really a lot of blood to complain about. There's a little.
We're not talking about what you didn't like, Karen.
No, but I can't complain about that. I actually liked kind of the story of it. I thought the beginning started off with a bang. The horrible evil person, it was really looking horror-ish and everything, and then it just kind of sputtered out a little bit for me. But I like the beginning. I like the casting's fine. The cast is small and I should have been able to follow it, but sometimes it got a little confused and stuff. That's, I think, all I have. What do you have?
The first thing I wrote is this is a good old movie. I think I told you last week that I felt like I'd seen it. I don't think I have. I was thinking of the older black and white version with Basil Rathbone as Sherlock Holmes because he's like the classic Sherlock Holmes, right?
I think those are the ones my mom watched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought the acting was really good. I thought the sets were really good. Even when it was an obvious set indoors and they were walking through the moors or the outdoors, I liked it. I knew it was what it was, but I liked it.
The mire was well done.
Yeah, it's good sets. I mean, it's obviously on a set, but I liked it. The music is good. Peter Cushing especially looked like he's having a lot of fun.
He did look like he was having fun.
And I read that he's kind of a Sherlock Holmes guy, so he'd read all the books and brought some of what he knew from the character to his performance and even like told the director and things, no, this is what Holmes would do or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's all I got. Anything you didn't like, Karen?
Well, you're not going to like what I didn't like. Because I didn't like Peter Cushing in this.
You didn't?
I thought he just came off as arrogant and
Well, yeah, because he's Sherlock Holmes.
I know, but I didn't like him as a character. I just didn't like him. And I get that. And I kept telling myself that he's just super intelligent. And maybe I've been around super intelligent people who are so arrogant that it ruffles my feathers or something. But I really didn't like him in it.
I loved him in it.
I mean, I could tell he was having fun, and I appreciated that. He really liked the role. You could see it, but just, I don't know. I just kept thinking, didn't like it.
I get it. I understand.
But I did, I don't mean to repeat myself, but you do see he's having a great time doing it. And you have to appreciate that part of it. But I really didn't him as the character necessarily. He could have toned it down a little, and I think I would have liked it. I think it would have been really cool. I know it's a Sherlock Holmes story, so you can't change it. But if it really was a hound,
yes, you can, Karen.
Well, but if it really was a hound from hell, so cool, right? Like it would.
That's just nonsense, Karen.
It would have been better if they had made it a horror film like that. For me, because we're a horror podcast, right? It turns out, as we're both going to say, this is not a horror film. It's a mystery film. Because even the tiny bit of horror that's in it
is very tiny. It's very tiny.
Is Scooby-Dooed away.
Yes.
They literally pull off the mask. On a dog. But I think they could have made it. It would have been good if the Hounds of Hell came for these awful people, right? Like that would have been a neat story.
That would have been a different film, a different title, a different everything.
But he could have said, yes, it was the Hounds of Hell. I figured it out. I should say, I didn't mention, I see in my notes here a little, I used to love Encyclopedia Brown books when I was a kid. That's how old I am. Do you remember those or not?
Shocking. Well, of course not, Karen, because you're so much older than me.
Right. But when Holmes would say things like, there were only the tips of his shoes, and then he would say because he was running, that's the kind of stuff that would be in Encyclopedia Brown books. They were kind of shorter books or stories. I can't remember. And you had to figure out the end. And that's the kind of clues that were in those. And I just kept laughing because it just kept taking me back to that. And I hardly ever figured it out. Which I wouldn't think that there were only the tips of his shoes because he was running. And I think that's what.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense, but yes.
Well, some people run. Depends on how you run.
Really?
But
you run on your tippy toes, Karen, do you? Is that what you did back in high school and cross
No,
country?
I ran distance. You do not run on your tippy toes
That's true.
when you're running distance.
I could see if you're running
But if you're sprinting, you do.
You might, yeah.
So I did like that it took me back to that, but it was harder for me. I did get confused sometimes what was going on. It all fits together conveniently at the end, kind of like Scooby-Doo, but there was crying in a room that was never explained because no one was in it. And then there were other things, like there were just kind of things that were happening that never really got explained. And, don't let him go out in the moor at night 100 times. But what does Watson do? Lets him go out on the moor at night. And you're just like, come on, man. I don't know. It's just kind of funny. But there's not a lot I didn't like about it. I just had a little trouble getting past him as the character. But I appreciate that he was having fun. Is there anything you didn't like?
I agree with pretty much everything you said, except what you said about Peter Cushing.
Oh, so you would like it to be the actual Hounds of Hell, too?
No, I don't really, but it's fine. I thought, I love me some Sir Christopher Lee, Karen, and I do enjoy that he has some lines to say, but when he does that, he also exposes himself a little bit. So he was okay.
Well, I liked him. I like the timbre of his voice.
Oh yeah.
And he did a good job.
He's got a wonderful voice, Karen.
Yes. And I thought he did a good job of being surprised at the end. Like he didn't know any of this was like I bought into it's funny that I liked him better and you didn't, and the other way around. It's all personal preference of,
Yeah. I also wrote it's confusing because there's so many Baskerville deaths. I was having a hard time. Is this Hugo or Charles or is this Henry? I mean, you know what I mean? That was a little confusing to me.
and even the end of how it all worked out was kind of like, well, what was the purpose of killing everyone? Were you going to be able to prove that, like there wasn't DNA testing back then. How was he going to prove who he was? I mean, they
True.
kind of say a little bit that he had that same hand
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
thing,
yeah.
but
Genetics.
so they imply it, but I wonder in the books if everything's solved in the last 2 pages. Because I was
'Cause
getting
that's what it feels like.
I know, because I was getting towards the end, and I'm like, they only got about 8 minutes to pull this
Like
together.
the Hound is the first two words in the title of the movie, right?
Yeah, but who's responsible? I didn't know, it's wrapping up, and then, well, when did you know? He's like, oh, with the boot. And I'm
I've
thinking,
known the whole time.
which was like 3 minutes into the movie. I was
Yeah.
like, come on.
Well, it's Sherlock Holmes. That's
I know he has keen
what he
observation
does.
skills, but he just seemed rude to everybody.
That's what he does, Karen.
I guess if that's how he is in the books, like
He
I
is.
said, I don't know. So,
Every film I've seen, Sherlock Holmes, he's rude like that.
okay.
Or arrogant. I would say arrogant, not maybe rude,
So I just didn't
but he don't
understand
mean
the
no
character.
harm, Karen. He
I don't
doesn't mean any
understand
harm.
him. I was uninformed. So
And it's not a horror film, Karen, as you've said.
I'm surprised it's listed under the horror genre for them.
It is, well, on the list I have, it's listed as a Hammer horror film. So there you go.
Well, the Hound is supposed to be a hellhound. So I guess, and there are some murders.
There's some
So
suspense in it. It's a
we don't actually see much of the
suspenseful
murders,
mystery.
but they're definitely happening. So I guess it could be horror. Someone is killing people.
Yeah. All right. Anything else?
No.
What kind of cocktail rating do you want to give this film, Karen?
If we were ranking it as a horror film, I'd say it's a 4. But if we're ranking it as a film, I'd say it's definitely a 3.
I agree, Karen. I wrote down 3.
Yeah. I mean, if you're
As a film.
expecting horror, you'll be disappointed a little, but
But that's like the
as a
first thing
film,
I
it's
wrote is it's as a good old movie. A good classic Hammer film, period, in my opinion.
it's okay. But I'm not the Hammer fan that you are. So,
And the girl who plays Cecile is in the Hammer Glamour book,
is
Karen.
she?
Yes. I was surprised, honestly, that
I didn't really
there
care
was a
much for
Hammer
her,
Glamour. Let's see if
to be honest. Not how she's a beautiful woman, but her character was odd.
she's also in another Hammer film, The Pirates of Blood River, which
Ooh.
we will never get to because it's not a horror film, because it's not on my list.
It's not a horror film. What is it?
I don't know. It's probably an adventure,
Oh,
a swashbuckling adventure,
I
Karen.
gotcha. But Blood River sounds like a horror film.
Well, so would the Hellhound of the Baskervilles.
Well, if it was called the Hellhound, true.
All right, 3 cocktails. Would you like to hear a review from the time, Karen?
Yeah.
First, I have to tell you this has a 95% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes,
Wow.
a 6.9 out of 10 on IMDb. What do you think Google users think, Karen?
92 on
95, 69,
90.
71%, Karen.
Oh, Google users agree with me.
That never
That's
happens.
that's strange.
Yeah, that's a very high Rotten Tomatoes.
And a very low Google when you compare the two.
The review I have is from the New York Times, Karen, dated July 4th, 1959. Whoever made the decision that The Hound of the Baskervilles should be filmed in bright Technicolor on well-lighted studio sets that bear not the slightest resemblance to the foggy English moors miscalculated completely the essential atmosphere for this ancient mystery story of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. As a consequence, the remake of the story, which came to the Victoria yesterday from the Hammer studio in London, is a garish excuse for what should be a fog wreathed and ghost haunted vehicle for another excursion of Sherlock Holmes. What is more, the essential menace of that hound howling out there on the moors, grimly waiting for the legend promised moment to sink its fangs into the new young lord of Baskerville, is neglected almost completely. I agree with that. We don't see the hound till like the last 5 minutes or whatever. Outside of a little baying once in a while, we get no image whatsoever of this creature until pretty near the end. Then we're given a glimpse of a Great Dane looking somewhat like someone's pet, except that he's wearing a false face, making a playful lunge at Christopher Lee. Nope, we're very much afraid this latest rendering of this oft rendered Conan Doyle tale lets this fabulous horror mystery story peter out in serene absurdities. Even the ominous aspects of the legend of the Curse of the Baskervilles, which Holmes is called in to fathom, are rather loudly and ridiculously conveyed. In the role of the great detective, Peter Cushing is stiff and austere, and his bumbling sidekick, Dr. Watson, is played listlessly by Andre Morel. Mr. Lee makes the young Sir Henry a handsome, horsey type, and Marla Landry, the Hammer Glamour girl, introduces a touch of the Latin into the role of the daughter of Stapleton. The latter, played by Ewan Solon, is fairly obvious as the heavy from the start. The one amusing character in the whole thing is the musty Franklin, played by Miles Malesome. To be sure, it's a little on the late side to be exhuming the Halloweenish hound, which is tame alongside some modern monsters, but it deserves something better than this.
That did remind me of something else I noticed that I didn't like was it would be dark and then they would get on a horse or something and it would be afternoon and then it would but it was the same scene almost, a continuation. There was very much it's
Filters,
dark,
they
it's light, it's dark, it's light.
yeah, they
There
didn't
were
use good
shadows
filters,
and yeah, it was just not consistent.
and he didn't. They didn't have many nice things to say about Peter Cushing either. I didn't think Watson was that bumbling in this.
No, but what's their deal? Are they roommates or do they are they colleagues or
Colleagues, they're just
they're
colleagues.
just always together?
Yeah,
And the other thing that was interesting is Peter Cushing is Sherlock Holmes, but we don't see him for
for a
quite a
long
while.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was surprised by that when I was watching it. I mean,
In
once he's
in my
there,
notes here, when we go through it scene by scene, at one point I say, "Where is Peter Cushing?"
yes, it takes a long time for him to show up and get us on track. But there's a lot of setup
Well, we
of
see him in the beginning, but
yeah, but he's not helping us along in the story.
no.
He gets there at the end, solves it, makes us feel stupid, and ta-da, it's all over.
That's what he does, Karen.
I didn't think the Stapleton was obviously the heavy from the beginning.
I didn't either.
So I,
And I even kind of read, some of the story of it, and still I was thinking it was someone else for a while. All right, are we ready to get into it scene by scene?
no,
Or do you need to tell us what film you have chosen next week first, Karen?
I'm going to tell you what film I've chosen for next week.
And what would that be, Karen?
I have chosen the 1942 film The Corpse Vanishes.
Any reason you chose that film, Karen?
Well, this podcast will come out
The next one, you mean?
when we do The Corpse Vanishes, comes out on the 7th. Is that correct?
Yep, May 7th.
And The Corpse Vanishes came out on May 8th,
Look at you,
1942.
Karen.
So exciting.
Most impressive. Do you have a cocktail to go along with The Corpse Vanishes, Karen?
I do.
Tell us, what is it?
It is called The Blushing Bride
Oh,
from bcliquorstores.com. You're going to need 1 ounce of Chambord, 1 ounce of gin, half an ounce of lemon juice, half an ounce of simple syrup, and 3 to 4 ounces of soda water.
I
You
have
know,
all those things.
I know I love when we have all the things. Build in a Collins glass, first adding the Chambord, followed by cubed ice. Next, combine the gin, lemon, and simple syrup in the glass and top with the soda water.
Is it a layered drink, Karen? Do you think it's a
No,
layered drink?
I don't think it is, but
Okay. The Blushing Bride?
the Blushing Bride.
It must be pink or pinkish. Chambord's kind of.
And there are a lot of Blushing Bride recipes out there, but a lot of them had champagne. And
Yes, and this one is the best.
well, I wouldn't say it's the best, but I didn't want to buy a whole bottle of champagne to make it. And so,
Understood. I had to buy a whole bottle of scotch today, Karen, to make this.
yeah, we're not big scotch drinkers, or at least they're not good Halloween drinks with scotch because we don't seem to make many.
It's delicious, though.
Yeah, it's better than I thought it would be. I'll give it that.
All right, are you ready to get into it scene by scene, Karen?
Yes.
All right. The Hound of the Baskervilles from 1959, a Hammer production starring Peter Cushing and Sir Christopher Lee.
Okay, but before we start,
Yes.
how many total Sherlock Holmes stories do you think Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote?
Total stories.
Which consist of 4 novels and short
Okay.
stories.
All right. I was about to say, I bet there's a bunch of short stories. Only 4 novels. I'm actually surprised at that. So I'm going to go 25.
See, I almost read this to you. So it includes 4 novels and 56 short stories. I was like, stop, because there's a total of 60.
Okay.
The stories are collectively known as the Sherlock Holmes canon.
Oh, as it would.
There you go. 60 stories. Did you watch this on Amazon?
I did, Karen, because it was included.
Yeah, you did get some ads,
We
but
have 14 ads total.
they go by pretty quick. And they're pretty,
And
there's,
the second one is a good bathroom break.
yes. And it's kind of in the middle. It's not a lot of them scattered throughout. I had them at the beginning, I had them at the middle. That was it.
Yep. Rated 13 plus for flashing lights, violence, alcohol use, smoking, and foul language. I didn't remember any foul language. Oh, he did say bitch, didn't he?
Yes, I was very surprised.
Yeah, that's some parts of this film would not fly today. I'm just saying.
Well, that happens a lot.
All right. Film starts and I have ads, and I wrote there were 7 of them. Then we see it's a Hammer Films production and credits. It's also a Terrence Fisher movie. Did lots of good Hammer films
You know why I knew how I knew it was not a horror film?
because of the font.
No, they didn't start off in a
Oh,
carriage in the woods.
Carriage in the Woods.
Yeah, so I'm like, what is this? What's happening?
Yeah, we start with a narrator giving us a little bit of the backstory about the Baskerville family as we zoom into some stained glass windows with like coat of arms or some shit on them.
Yes, and he says Baskerville was once held by Hugo, a wild, profane, and godless man, and an evil man in truth, for there was with him a certain ugly and cruel humor.
He's just a dick, Karen.
Yeah, I mean, 100%.
He's an asshole, dick. It just so we see I wrote aristocrats torturing a house worker.
Yeah, they threw him out a window into the moat, then went and collected him and brought him back. And
Hold him to the fire.
yeah, they basically kill him by doing that because he wouldn't give up his daughter, it turns out.
But they have his daughter anyway, locked in a room. Baskerville goes in to get the girl. I guess who is this? Hugo?
Yeah, Hugo.
Hugo goes in there to get the girl, but she gone. She escaped out the window, apparently.
And scuttled down the ivy.
Baskerville's very upset and he calls her a bitch and he wants to hunt her with the hounds.
Yeah, and even as because she dropped like a scarf on her way down. So he's like, I have her now. I mean, he's horrible. And this part was very distressing. I thought, this is crazy. And even his friends are like, you can't hunt, because he's like, release the hounds. And his friends are like, dude, that's over a line, but not for Hugo.
I'm sure they would have been okay with raping her, Karen, but
Oh, that's what they were willing to do. It was very disturbing, the start of the movie, I thought.
then we see the girl running through the moors, and the hounds and Baskerville are chasing. For some reason, the hounds are suddenly scared away, but Baskerville continues. Horse is reluctant to go on.
Yeah, and we find out later she's in an old abbey ruins.
Yeah, so they're in this ruins, and then Baskerville grabs her and they struggle. And then he pulls a dagger and stabs her, Karen.
Yeah.
Then Baskerville is attacked. He gone. Apparently, it's a hound from hell. Oh, I wrote hound from hell forever to bring misfortune to the Baskerville family. So I guess the guy's finishing his little backstory on the Baskervilles.
Yeah, so if all this is so what was that? Like, as we move on in the story, we find out someone is now repeating it or whatever. But was there really a hellhound there? Is that what we're supposed to believe? Or what actually happens to Hugo? Like it's kind
Don't
of one
know,
of those
Karen. Nobody knows. It's legend.
folk tales. Hey, you're already halfway through the podcast. What do you think? If you like what you hear, can you take a minute and follow us on social media? At Scary Spirits Podcast. We're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Thanks so much for listening. Now let's get back to the show.
So then we see Sherlock Holmes and Watson listening to this story being told to them by Dr. Mortimer. And Sherlock Holmes uses his deduction to see that Mortimer is there for a reason.
He does say they're on Baker Street, which is kind of cool because, that's the famous street.
And they talk about the death of Sir Charles Baskerville. He just died, apparently, but Holmes, of course, just wants the facts, just the facts, just the facts.
Yeah, and he knows because he's showing us his deduction qualities here. Because he's saying, well, something happened on Friday the 13th. How do you know? It's because you're holding the newspaper. Like he's telling all these things. And he mentions whatever it is in the stop press. And I didn't know what that was. So a stop press means last minute breaking news that's added to a newspaper or publication after the main printing has begun. In the printing industry,
like, stop the presses.
Yes, referred to halting the printing process. Very well done. To revise content, especially for significant news. Today, it says it's used to indicate a space in a newspaper for late breaking news or to signal the arrival of a particularly important news. But he's holding that. But basically, Holmes is just rapid firing things that he's noticed about the guy.
Then Dr. Mortimer tells Holmes about the discovery of Sir Charles's body near the Abbey.
A fortnight ago.
Ooh, another fortnight.
Yes.
Near the Abbey ruins where Sir Hugo died in the legend.
Yes, and his servant Barrymore found him. Did they say his throat was torn out?
Yeah, something like that. And he had the look of horror upon his face. So I wrote another look of horror, Karen.
Yes. And so is it possible for a dead person's face to appear contorted in horror? Because we see that a lot, right? In the Peeping Tom, every woman that died had their face contorted in fear. So it is possible for a dead person's face to appear contorted, and some people may perceive this as a sign of fear or distress, even though the individual is no longer conscious. This can be due to physical changes that occur after death, including muscle stiffness and facial expressions that can be misinterpreted. After death, the body undergoes several physical changes, including rigor mortis and changes in facial expressions. These changes can make the face appear grimaced as the muscles are no longer being voluntarily controlled. So I'm going to go, I'll probably die with resting bitch face. Like, because you're not, I mean, think of that. Like, I'm sure they'll fix it and make me look my delightful self, but we hear that all the time. And I finally was like, wait a minute, I don't think that's a thing. And it doesn't sound like it is.
Then Dr. Watson talks about the medical condition the Baskervilles suffer from heart failure, right?
Yes, they have heart conditions.
Holmes agrees to go meet Baskerville.
And he does talk about the footprints here, I'm just
Yeah,
going to say.
Holmes deduces that Baskerville, the bath was running, not tiptoeing.
When he died, he wasn't tiptoeing when he died, he was
No.
running.
So then we meet Sir Christopher Lee as Sir Henry Baskerville, right? And he's in, I guess, a hotel in London. And Holmes and Watson enter, and he thinks they're like the hotel manager and a bellboy or something. He gives them a bunch of shit about his missing boot and whatnot.
Yes.
And right here is where Holmes deduces.
Yes. We don't know it till the end of the movie.
Yes, but right here
But
is
right
where
here, he's got it
Holmes
figured
knows
out.
what happened.
Yes.
Dr. Mortimer enters and introduces them, and then, Christopher Lee's very humble and whatnot. But I did write, he towers over them,
Yes.
as he always does. And we learn that the estate that Sir Henry is inheriting is worth £1 million, Karen.
Yeah, and I tried to look up what that would be, and I got vastly different numbers. Did you look it up?
I did, Karen.
Okay, good. Let me see which one it comes out
The
to.
number I came up with, based upon whatever date I was using when this came out or whatnot, I came up with $216 million,
Okay.
433,000.
I got one like that, and I got one that was 8 million. And I was like, I don't know what to do here. So I let it go. Yeah. So it's worth a lot.
$216.5 million.
I think I maybe got 29. Well, no, that sounds right.
And also, Dr. Mortimer receives £40,000, which is almost half of that, which ain't bad either, right? Or 40,000. So
No,
no,
40, not half of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
But 40's still good. Even the servants got £1,000 each.
so Holmes tells Sir Henry that his life is in danger. He sends Watson to go with him and to not let him go out into the moor at night.
Under no circumstances. So,
You had one job.
so Christopher Lee's like, if you're so worried about me, just come with me. And Holmes is like, I can't possibly leave till the end of the week. He's like my dad. You can't spring stuff on him. You got a plan. You can't just say, let's go to lunch tomorrow. That's just not going to work. But he sends Watson in his stead. So, and does, like says, under no circumstances.
Then we see a tarantula crawling out of Sir Henry's boot onto his shoulder. Holmes tells him to stop unless he wants to die, or something very dramatic. Holmes tells him to stay perfectly still, and Sir Henry starts sweating.
Profusely.
And then Holmes knocks the spider off his neck and kills it with his cane.
So we've talked about tarantulas before, and they do kind of explain it away in this movie a little bit because a tarantula, normally the venom wouldn't be poisonous to a human. But they say if you had a heart condition, then it would probably cause a lot more damage. I don't know if that's true or not, but I do know we've talked about tarantulas and that the bites are not deadly, but they do explain it away, which was a nice touch.
So then Watson, Sir Henry, and Dr. Mortimer, they're on their way to Baskerville Hall.
Wait, so
Mm.
before we go forward, would that freak you out, a big spider on your shoulder like that? See, and I was thinking that wouldn't freak me out, right?
Not terribly.
And then I know you guys know I have a lot of cats in my house. And three of them were staring at a closet door with their tails switching, right? Switching back and forth. And I'm like, well, that's not good, right? So I had watched this movie and I thought that wouldn't freak me out. big spider, whatever. It's furry little spider. I think I could hold it if somebody put it on me or whatever. And then I'm like, okay, so I get the cats out. I'm going to open the front door. I'm going to have this mouse. So I built this barricade with boxes. Jackson, my son, is with me, my younger son. And I'm like, we're going to get this mouse out the front door because it's a terrible death to go by cat. That thing ran out of there and I screamed like a little girl because I thought it was going to run up it went right across my feet and I thought it was going to run up like my leg or something. So, yeah. So I was big talker Betty Crocker, like that spider wouldn't have bothered me, but I couldn't even handle a little mouse running across my feet. It was embarrassing. But in the moment, I mean, I wasn't sweating like he was. So, and I did see a thing too, and they don't know if he said it for publicity's sake or not, but have you seen where Christopher Lee is supposed to be very afraid of spiders?
No.
And so it was kind of a natural reaction for him to do that because he is very afraid of spiders. But even the source said they don't know
I don't believe that.
if he did it just to bring more drama. So you don't know what's going to happen.
So then we see Watson, Sir Henry, Dr. Mortimer on the way to the Baskerville Hall. Dr. Mortimer gets out to walk across the moors. And then we get
It's only 7 miles across the moor, he says. I'm like,
and we get the
wow.
story of the escaped convict. There's a driver warns him, hey, there's a convict on the loose, blah, blah, blah. So then we at the Baskerville Hall, and the butler I wrote walking Sir Henry through the hall, and we see a picture of Sir Hugo is missing. Question
went
mark.
missing a couple months ago or something. Stolen in the middle of the night. And I said, Sir Henry's in a full tuxedo. They dress for dinner.
Yeah, and then Sir Henry proposes a toast he includes the butler and butler's wife and Watson, right? And he proposes a toast, and the butler's wife drops her glass.
He says something like how the curse and the hound of hell will never bring fear to those on the moors at night or something, and she freaks out.
Then Watson talks to the butler. He asks about Sir Charles's death. He asks if he believes about the legend of the Hound of the Baskervilles. Butler says he doesn't know, but he has heard the howl.
And he says, why did you cut across the moor? Because the servant found him. And Watson says, why did you go across the moor? Why didn't you go on the road? And he explains it's a shortcut. Because he wouldn't have found him if he hadn't gone to the Abbey ruins.
Then we hear a woman crying. Watson goes to investigate, but he gives up. He doesn't find anything. He just gives up the chase. And then Watson goes to close the window, and we hear a howl. Next thing I have is Bishop Franklin comes to see Sir Henry. Apparently he's an entomologist, Karen.
And he's got a really cool tricycle.
He does. The bishop talks about Sir Charles. Then he's asking for donations for a jumbo sale. Is that what he calls it? A jumbo sale?
Yeah, I looked that up too. It's just a rummage sale.
Okay. And
but he drinks a lot of sherry. And he implies some things about Sir Charles that implies he was not a great man. Like, he was a womanizer. He didn't treat people well. You kind of get a sense that he wasn't a nice guy.
Then Watson goes to the post office, and he receives a telegram from Holmes telling him under no circumstances to let Sir Henry, venture into the moors.
At night, alone.
So then we see Watson walking back, and he almost falls into a trap. A farmer stops him. The farmer thinks Watson is Sir Henry.
Yeah, it's a leg trap, not a trap. Like, it's an animal trap.
Animal trap.
And Watson actually says, you know, there are more humane ways to trap animals than this. And they get into a discussion. And he says, why don't you use a gun? And that's when Stapleton shows him his hand.
Yes.
And says he can't fire a gun because his hand is webbed.
And then Stapleton, who is the farmer, gives Watson directions back to the hall.
Says, stay on the track.
Then Watson meets a woman on his on his travels.
Yes. She's barefoot.
And he asks the way to the hall again, and she runs away. He chases after her, and then he falls into a peat bog, I wrote, Karen.
That's what they call the mire, which is just a stretch of swampy or boggy ground. But they keep saying, beware the mire.
Farmer arrives and pulls Watson out. He asks his daughter Cecile to come help.
And she does.
So then Stapleton, the farmer, takes Watson back to Baskerville Hall.
Because he says he wants to meet Sir Henry.
Yep. Henry arrives and he introduces himself to Cecile.
Because Cecile's not allowed to go in. Just the men folk can go into the hall.
Yes. And she runs away. He chases after her, and Cecile kisses Sir Henry.
Yeah, it's weird.
Just compelled to kiss him all of a sudden. And then Sir Henry meets Stapleton. Stapleton takes his daughter, Cecile, away on a cart. Ad. 7 ads right here. So then Sir Henry hears a woman crying. Watson and Sir Henry go to investigate. They find a room with a candle burning, and they see a light out in the moors. They decide to go investigate.
But I said, there is good shadow work here. But I said, he looks like he's too tall to fit in that door. Because when he's walking toward, I said, is that an optical illusion? But no, when he walks up to the door, it's at his forehead.
Yeah.
But yeah, they run off to investigate.
Then I wrote, they walk through an obvious set, but I love it. And they chase after a man, thinking he is the one who had the light lit, and we hear a howl. Then Sir Henry grabs his chest. Dr. Watson gives him a flask to drink from,
Yes, because that'll help.
Karen. What do you think was in that flask,
And I
Karen?
said, they're doing exactly what they're not supposed to do.
And then right here I wrote, where is Holmes?
Yes,
He's been gone a
exactly.
long time. So then Dr. Mortimer and Dr. Watson discuss Sir Henry. Sir Henry had a mild heart attack, question mark. And Watson convinces Mortimer to stay. So I thought it was Mortimer the whole, like, most of the time.
They set him up. Yeah, he looks shifty. But why? Where's Watson? Oh, Watson's going back out, right?
Yeah, he's
too.
walking through the moors,
But he
gun
tells.
drawn.
Yes.
And then Holmes pops out and questions Watson about why he left Sir Henry alone. But he didn't leave him alone in the moors, right? He left him alone in Baskerville Hall.
He look. See, and I wrote he looks like Dracula up there.
But he explains he left Sir Henry with Dr. Mortimer, so he's not alone.
No, but he's not with Watson.
All right, whatever. So then we learn Holmes was the man they saw earlier. Holmes says he was looking
We
for...
thought was the criminal, but it was
Yes.
Holmes. Yeah.
And Holmes says he's looking for the escaped convict. He says, there is more evil around here than I have ever encountered before. And then I wrote, they run through the foggy's fog after a howl, another
Yes.
howl. Holmes takes out his binoculars and sees that Dr. Mortimer is gone. Screams. Holmes and Watson chase after the screams. But it's not Dr. Mortimer. Oh, yeah, Dr. Mortimer leaves. That's right. Dr. Mortimer left
Yeah.
Sir
'Cause-
Henry.
Yeah, we
Got
didn't know because Holmes takes out his binoculars and sees that Mortimer is gone.
So then they see a body that they believe is Sir Henry because it's wearing his tweed jacket or whatever.
His suit from earlier.
And then Holmes and Watson go to Baskerville Hall. They see the light coming from the same room as earlier at the end of the hall. They enter to find Sir Henry. Holmes deduces that the escaped convict was the body they found. He was wearing Sir Henry's clothes. Watson asks why Dr. Mortimer left, and Sir Henry says, oh, he was going on and on about the death of Sir Charles. I
I
don't know.
said Mortimer wouldn't shut up about the curse, and Henry was annoyed.
Pretty much.
So they basically had a disagreement, and Mortimer stomped out. Or Sir Henry said, just leave.
And then Holmes tells the butler to put the candle out in the room at the end of the hall. And right here
Doesn't
is
have a purpose.
Well, this is like the first little inkling that
He knows.
Holmes knows.
Yeah.
Next day, Holmes and Watson looking for the body. Then they find some hammer blood. I wrote, Karen. The hammer blood trail leads to the ruins on the hill.
Before they leave the house, Holmes sees that the picture of Hugo and the other one was gone, and he says, "Of course." And then he goes to bed, which is another clue that he knows what's going on. But Watson's like, "What?" And they say, "Just go to bed." But yeah, they go to the Abbey ruins
They investigate the ruins and find more hammer blood, and they find the curved dagger,
with the crest on the hilt.
the Baskerville crest.
Yes.
And they find the body of the escaped convict. His body had been mutilated like a sacrificial rite, Karen.
Yes.
Holmes questioning the Barrymores, who are the butler and maid, right? And then Holmes calls the wife Miss Selden,
Yes.
and she doesn't blink an eye and answers him, but that is the name of the convict. Apparently he deduces that the convict was her brother.
Yeah, I don't know how that came about, but whatever. But he got the suit, the clothes he was wearing, she took out of the rummage sale pile from Sir Henry. So that's why he was wearing Sir Henry's clothes, which never would have fit him because Sir Christopher Lee is about 10 feet taller than everyone around him, but okay. But some clothes are better than others. And then she was feeding him, and that was the signal, their candles and things.
Yeah, they
So,
were using candles in the windows to communicate. Then Holmes says, "All things bright and beautiful, all things great and small." I think that's a quote from some literary work, isn't it?
I'm sure it is.
Then Holmes and Watson go to visit the bishop. Bishop gives Holmes some sherry,
The bishop is comic relief, and he likes his sherry.
and he's in a lot of these Hammer films we do. He's either a drunk
He's a bumbling.
or he was in Peeping Tom too. He was the guy being the views. He was the guy buying the views.
Oh,
Remember? People talk, you hear things. I hear you might have some views.
yes.
So Holmes introduces himself to the bishop, and the bishop says he's honored to meet the nation's greatest detective, and Holmes says he is honored to meet the country's most famous entomologist. Then Holmes questions the bishop about tarantulas. Holmes deduces that the bishop lost a spider, and it was the one that he killed in London. Holmes asks about the visitors the bishop had on the day the tarantula disappeared. Dr. Mortimer was one of the visitors, as well as Mrs. Stapleton, and also a man named Smith.
Yes.
So next we see Sir Henry knocking on a door, and he just enters. He asks for Mrs. Stapleton. Cecile tells Sir Henry that her father was gone to the hall to invite him and his friends to dinner that evening.
Yeah, they
But
must have passed on the moors and didn't know it.
yeah, so he's at Cecile's house.
Alone.
Yes. But Cecile would rather be in Spain, Karen.
Yes.
Her father bought some bad farmland, apparently. And Sir Henry says he wants to know her.
She doesn't want to live in England. She wants to live in Spain, where her mother is from.
He asks why she kissed him. She does not know. But then Sir Henry kisses her. He asks to meet her that evening. Then Dad arrives, Mr. Stapleton, and they share a tankard of cider.
Yeah, so they're actually kissing again, and you see her looking at someone or something, and then Sir Henry turns around and it's her father, who is, you would think, not be happy the way he's been acting this whole time, but he doesn't seem that upset. He just goes on with, "Get me some cider too," and they talk, do man talk. And
Then we see Holmes and Watson riding in a carriage discussing the tarantula, and they run through the suspects. Watson mentions the Hound of Hell, and Holmes examines a map with his magnifying glass. Of course,
yes,
of course. How could I have been so stupid?
that was so funny.
So we see Holmes and Watson questioning Dr. Mortimer. They ask why he left Sir Henry the previous evening. And then Holmes asks Mortimer about a tin mine on a map. Mortimer says he cannot tell him where the entrance is. It's on the land of the farmer Stapleton. Maybe he knows.
But Mortimer is cagey.
He is, but
Almost,
he does agree to investigate the tin mine with Holmes.
yes.
And then Holmes shows Mortimer the dagger. Then we see Holmes, Stapleton, and Mortimer in the tin mine. Mortimer's scared of a cave-in. Holmes ventures into the mine while Mortimer and Stapleton secure the wheels of a cart.
That's in the mine. So they stay back to secure because it's dangerous. Because if it moves forward, it's going to hit something and the whole place is going to collapse.
Holmes proclaims that he has found what he came for, and then there's a cave-in. And I wrote Mortimer and Stapleton. I didn't write this, but I'm Mortimer and Stapleton look pretty guilty as they're standing there next to the
I
cart when
know.
everything is caving in on top of Holmes. But whatever. Then we cut to Watson and Stapleton trying to dig through the cave in. Mortimer tells them that Holmes must be dead. They all arrive back
Because they say it's been like 2 hours.
2 hours, yeah. But they do talk about there's air holes,
Ventilation and stuff.
ventilation, and
Yeah.
whatnot. So they arrive back at their carriage, and Holmes is there waiting for them. He says he's been waiting for them for 10 minutes. He wants to get back to the hall.
Yeah.
And his leg is hurt too,
He's
apparently.
cranky. His leg is hurt.
He's cranky.
He's been waiting 10 minutes.
And then get back to the hall, and Holmes asks for his tobacco. It's in the top right drawer, and it's not there. And it absolutely is there. That's where I left it. But then he realizes that someone has been in his room, and they find the dagger is missing as well. Sir Henry enters. He tells them they have been invited to Stapleton's for dinner. Holmes chastises Sir Henry for having dinner with peasants.
Yeah, see, that's what I mean. But
But he's playing a part there.
then you find out he is, yes.
Holmes tells Watson he wanted Sir Henry to go without them, so he was being rude on purpose. Enjoy their rabbit pie.
Yes.
So then Sir Henry and Cecile kissy face.
I said, is she going to kill him?
Holmes deduces from the missing painting that Stapleton is descendant of the Baskervilles because of webbed hands, question mark.
Yeah, so
You gonna tell us about webbed hands,
I
Dr. Karen?
am. Webbed fingers, also known as syndactyly, are a relatively common birth defect affecting about 1 in 2 to 3,000 newborns. This means it's not an extremely rare condition, but it's not particularly frequent either. It can occur alone or as part of a larger genetic syndrome, and it can affect both feet or hands. So, like I said, 1 in 2,000 to 3,000 babies. About half of individuals have it on both hands or both feet, while the other half have it only on one side. White children seem to be more likely to have it than other ethnicities. Do you think males or females get it more?
Probably males.
Yep. According to the NIH, it's males. About 10 to 40% of individuals have a family history of the condition. That's implying some genetics there.
Then we see Holmes and Watson at the ruins, I wrote question mark. And Cecile leading Sir Henry there.
Very easily.
Yeah, and they kissy face some more. And then Cecile smacks Sir Henry,
And calls him swine.
led him to a trap, the same place Sir Charles died.
You thought it would be easy. You wouldn't be the first of your family to think that you wouldn't be the first to die because of it. Like she implies that Sir Charles wanted to hang with her too, shall we say. So all of the Baskervilles are interested in Cecile.
Then we hear a howl.
Oh, yeah, she says, Sir Charles, your dear uncle died here because he wanted me.
And then we see Great Dane wearing a mask attacks Sir Henry.
While Cecile just watches.
Yeah, Stapleton tries to kill Watson with the dagger. Watson shoots him, and then Holmes shoots the Hound. Cecile goes to kill Sir Henry. Holmes tries to stop her, but she bites him. She runs away as Watson and Holmes attend to Sir Henry. Holmes removes the mask from the Great Dane and explains they kept it in a mine and did not feed it.
Yeah, it's terrible. Starved the dog for weeks to make him hungry.
And they have Sir Henry's boot that was missing from London.
Yes. So Stapleton presumably is keeping the Hound in the mine, right? So he had to have known when Holmes was in there Because Holmes comes out and says or somewhere says there's a tunnel that leads right here to the Abbey. That's why the dog can come there. So he must have known that Holmes could get out because there were other exits or entries, and he was using it for the dog. They say he kept the dog in there. Of course, you don't know if Holmes was crushed by all the debris or not, but still, he should have been suspicious.
Cecile runs away and falls into the bog. She's gone, which I thought was kind of anticlimactic.
Yeah. They just all stand on the hill and watch her go under.
Yep. Cut to Baker Street, I guess. Sir Henry sends Holmes the missing painting and a check, Karen. The missing painting of Sir Hugo, I guess. Right?
Yeah, I think that's where Stapleton was going to prove he was related to him because of the painting showed his webbed hand, and then Stapleton was going to show his webbed hand. But then when they were saying all that, I'm like, wait, so then Sir Henry and Cecile are related. And they're kissy facing. But she was all setting it up for a trap. But
then Watson asks Holmes how he figured out the case, and the missing boot sent Holmes down the correct path, he says. Credits.
Well, he ends with, "It's elementary, my dear Watson." Elementary, which is the famous Holmes line, or at least that's what I think it is in my limited knowledge. And then it ends, yes.
Credits, the end. All right, Karen, what did you think of the Sherlock Holmes cocktail?
I liked it much better than I thought I would. I'm not a Scotch drinker, but the tea is interesting.
I was pretty sure it was going to be good because
it tastes kind of smoky to me, the tea.
It is. Tea is very smoky. I've told people who have asked me, what's that taste like? I tell them a campfire.
I'm not usually a fan of
which would go, I think, well with Scotch whiskey or whatever.
Oh, and Holmes smokes all the time. So it's a nice tie-in. But when I sipped it, I asked my husband, is the Scotch smoky? He said no. And he said it must be the tea. So you can definitely taste it.
It is. He is very smoky.
But it's not, and again, I tend to play with the amounts, so I don't always put this.
But it's sweet too because of the honey. And
the required amount of alcohol in it always. So it didn't have a strong sting, which a lot of times Scotch or whiskey drinks have. It's mellowed by the tea and the honey. So I liked it.
I did as well. Right. Anyone you need to thank this week, Karen?
Well, as always, we need to thank our listener because there are so many podcasts out there. We really appreciate you spending time with us. What about you, Greg? Who do you need to thank?
Karen, I'm going to once again thank the band Verse 13 for providing all the music in the Scary Spirits podcast.
The music definitely makes the podcast better.
Anything else, Karen?
Please drink responsibly.
Yes.
Thanks for listening to the Scary Spirits podcast, where the movies might be iffy, but the drinks are always solid. We would love to hear from you. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Scary Spirits Podcast, or go to our website, scaryspirits.com. And if you want the direct line, email us at info@scaryspirits.com. If you really want to help us out, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And remember, always drink responsibly. See you next week.